The resolution, the United States federal government should significantly, or substantially,
Just the res.
the res, the plan text.
That seems legit.
The United States federal government will approve a transfer of $1 million to Pakistan's Nuclear Strategic Plans Division for personnel screening, dummy storage facilities, and transportation security. Repeat, the United States federal government will approve the transfer of $1 million to Pakistan's Nuclear Strategic Plan Division for personnel screening, dummy storage facilities, and transportation security. Solvency point number one is going to be the money solves the latest strategic plans division, or I'm going to call it the SPD from now on, is extremely successful because Quadi, who is a leader, said he screens soldiers and helpers extremely well, indicates that it solves for corruption. There little B is going to be the SPD funding that expands oversight, which is key to being able to check back for behavioral changes in personnel thoroughly for the types of extremists. Additionally, the SPD can increase storage sites, dummy storage sites that divert attention to fake from active ones to fake ones. Two is going to be the coalition support solves for funding oversight because normal means that the defense controller will require reimbursement claims to the certain quantifier information. Three is some of the United States federal government funding is available in the status quo GAO indicates that the program the United States federal government would use currently has $1 billion allocated over a 5-year program. The advantage is uniqueness, the nuclear weapons on the status quo number one is Pakistan's security risk. The ASME Heritage Foundation indicates that preventing Pakistan nuclear weapons from falling into the wrong hands should be a top priority for the United States federal government. Little B is the CIA and Department of Energy indicate that greater possibility of nuclear meltdown happens in Pakistan than anywhere else in the world. Additionally, it's key to number two is that there have been near misses in status quo. The latest in November 2007 suicide bomber attacked a bus carrying workers to the Shanghai Shangdig Air Base indicates that they could have been carrying the nuclear weapons because the nuclear weapons are carried in secret facilities. Additionally, that indicates that storage facilities could possibly fall in the wrong hands. Little B is the Taliban attacked main storage site in the status quo because the militants were routinely raiding air bases. Indicates that it's extremely likely that it's only a matter of time because Pakistan only has 12 bases where they could potentially have nuclear weapons. Three is going to be Pakistan reforms and not enough in the status quo. Congressional research says Pakistan reforms were never enough because additionally, Center for Strategic and International Studies indicates that weapons being stolen is inevitable with current checks and balances systems that can be bypassed. Four, Pakistan relies on secrecy over physical security because they are relying on the fact that every time they transport a nuclear weapon, it's in a civilian van instead of a high-profile plan. I think that's going to be able to solve what we think that's a pretty ridiculous plan. Solves, these way plan solves. Plan increases oversight level is going to be the extra dummy sites solved because Pakistan has 120 genuine warheads. Could be any of the 20 sites, sorry, 20, not 12. Additionally, it could be near reactor indicates that the increase in dummy sites solves back for the tax level abuse screening is essential to prevent corruption because right now the SPD often uses civilian bans indicates that if they know where the bans are, increased likelihood of theft. Two, increased perception of safety arguments. If Pakistan perceptually increased safety in the region indicates that extremists would be less likely to try and attack. Number three is we increase strategic engagement solved because we increase information the United States would have about the nuclear weapons, decrease the likelihood that we would miscalculate and attack in reaction in the status quo. Your question?
Where does the money come from?
Where do you transfer it from? We already allocated to a Pakistani fund. What's the solvency?
Yeah, it's a program that already exists. It has $1.5 billion.
No, I mean, but that's our argument about it. Yeah.
C is interlinked. Number one is going to be the weak oversight leads to the loose nuclear weapons. The latest going to be Russian Foreign Ministry indicates that there are 130,000 directly involved people in Pakistan's nuclear program and indicates that the threat from corruption is extremely high. Little B is going to be Pakistan's the number one target for extremists because they are already pissed off. The United States engagement in Iran, bin Laden, and additionally United States drone strikes in Pakistan have already pissed off extremists. Additionally, our engagement in the Saudi Peninsula in the past, probably the reason bin Laden hated us in the first place, they are all past actions that can't reconcile indicates that security is probably the best way to do it. Number two, Al-Qaeda would steal a nuclear weapon which causes miscalculation. Additionally, it would disappear, which would cause an investor freak out. And world which the news was propagating the idea that a nuclear weapon had been stolen, probably decrease investment in foreign oil. Impact number one is going to be oil shocks. Little is a threat from international response, causing investors freak out. Additionally, words say oil is speculation, indicates speculative increased price of oil in anticipation of the future attack. Little is going to be oil price, a major part of food prices, indicates that because transportation costs 70% from oil, indicates that the increased transportation costs increase outdoor production. Additionally, ag's on the brink right now because of droughts and farm bill not passing. Additionally, it'll see some starvation. Our argument in the world that many people are on the brink and cannot afford food in the first place means that this will push them over the brink. Additionally, it leads spend the majority of their money on either healthcare or food indicates that they have to make choices and probably humanize. And number two is going to be the United States escalation causes a war in the Middle East. The latest going to restore Pakistan diplomatic relations probably means we'd overreact to a nuclear weapon being stolen. It would increase ISI engagement in Afghanistan. Additionally, we would say a little bit may attack and jam in Kashmir is inevitable in the world. ISI gains power because the nuclear miscalculation happened as a result of the perception the ISI is happening through a rogue institution. Probably means that that Pakistan or India would be willing to launch a preemptive attack in the anticipation of this. Additionally, the United States could literally intervene in any state in the Middle East as a result of not knowing where the nuclear weapons is. We probably didn't have enough reason to attack Afghanistan right after 9/11, but we sure as heck attacked someone as a result of probably needs a war inevitable in the Middle East.
It's going to be 2 off.
Is one particularly long?
The second one will be very long.
Do I need like 5 sheets?
Well, there's going to be a framework page, I mean, obviously, but so 4. We all good?
Hold on 1 second.
Really good. You sure? No? You settled? All right. Serious.
First, the interpretation has to be quid pro quo. It has to be on a condition basis.
Aid has to be quid pro quo.
It has to be quid pro quo.
Aid has to be quid pro quo.
Aid has to be quid pro quo. One of the assistance now is ultimately conditioned in the Middle East, which means that's where all the literature is. All the violation is planned in the vacuum does not include a condition on the aid. All this brings the standard debate. The topic education, all topics is about forms of conditioned aid. Also, that is for a deep solvency debate on whether or not they can fulfill the condition. Ultimately, this is key to the case here debate, which is key to competitive equity and topic-specific education. It's a voter for jurisdiction and competitive equity. Next up. First is going to be the framework. We realize the base game, but it's more important to consider how we play the game than rather who's winning within it. That's an imaginary plan. It doesn't really happen because if you have, we get to test the justification of the 1AC. 50% of the debate is philosophical assumption, just politics. Last for us to interrogate different type of debate, not a voter, just justification for the reason why we get the criticism. Next is going to be the links. This debate exists on stolen land. That's just an FYI. The U.S. assistance is a response to the vulnerability created by 9/11 and locks into the superpower syndrome. Plan acts as a means of managing the chaotic space of the Middle East and remaking it in our own image in order to eliminate the uncertainty of the Arab Spring through American democratic universalism. There is a couple of bottom-level link arguments we'll be making here. One is Osama bin Laden only accelerates this specifically in Pakistan because we do not know what side Pakistan is on. Ultimately, there is lots of rumors whether or not Pakistan hid Osama bin Laden for us because we do not know which side Pakistan is on. Of course, we seek to ultimately homogenize them, recreate them in our image. This means this brings up to an next link, which is going to be the Orientalism link. They construct the other one, which we cannot know as this. We are the white man on the other side of the plain glass window, and these are the brown others on the other side of the plain glass window that we seek to know or eliminate. Ultimately, because they seek to commit some sort of violence against us. This is exactly our argument, is that we cannot seek. We cannot seek to separate ourselves from these selves. We are all human beings that inhabit this earth. Their construction of the Oriental other ultimately means that we seek to eliminate them. And there's another link here. It's conception of peace. Their conception of peace denies the war on the feminine body that happens every single day of every single year. This ultimately means that their forms of masculine proves our vulnerability. The argument that they are afraid to open up and be vulnerable to the world, but they have to be masculine, dominate. This is the superpower syndrome that we were just talking about. There is the next link here. It's corruption. I think this celebrates the Orientalism link as well because we assume corruption. We assume obviously there's corruption over there. There are not clear warrants. There are not great warrants in the 1AC anywhere really. But we assume corruption obviously happens in Pakistan because they are the Orientalists of this argument because it denies and externalizes the corruption that takes place here at home, which only allows us to deny the vulnerability that we have ourselves about what happened about 9/11, the Arab Spring, and how that interacts with the West. The U.S.'s response to the Arab Spring is stuck in the 9/11 state of mind of their obsession with the management of the region's government reproduces the superpower syndrome, creating fantasies of world control that ensure confrontation with China and Russia that collapses regional stability. Yes.
I just want to know how does the plan happen on illegal land? Could you explain that a little bit?
Oh, dude, that was a joke.
Oh.
On to y'all. The alternative is... Wow, Chief really said y'all would think that was okay.
And he really did, that's funny. I enjoyed that. All right.
The alternative is going to be okay. The alternative is acceptance. We should reject the affirmative. The alternative is acceptance. We should reject the affirmative relation of 9/11 vengeance towards the Middle East and ride the wave.
Wait, can I
The alternative is acceptance. We should reject the affirmative's relation of 9/11 vengeance towards the Middle East and ride the wave. Allowing democratic
Hey,
revolutions.
read it one more
Yeah,
time.
because I was trying to get.
The alternative is acceptance. We should reject the affirmative's relation to 9/11 vengeance towards the Middle East and ride the wave. You don't have to be a surfer. It's an academic question. But allowing democratic revolutions to unmake our foreign policy model and create a new series of relations between us and the Middle East. The abstract security mindset that has thus far served only to lock them into a spiral of violence and misunderstanding must be abandoned. Our assumptions that we create about the Middle East ultimately recreate a construction of how we would wish to view the Middle East just as Iraq. We constructed threats to WMDs that ultimately did not exist because we constructed an Orientalist other that existed on the other side of the plain glass window. We ultimately created these forms of threats to justify their elimination. The role of the ballot is to endorse the most productive method for engaging the Middle East. The affirmative is not offense in our interpretation. If we win, then indict your method. Probably should have floated that. The impact.
Question?
Go.
Can you explain your alternative a little more? It sounds a little vague to me. I'm having trouble understanding what voting for.
It allows for these people to create their own progress.
Like, we don't intervene in their own. Our intervention is just.
Well, what does ride the wave mean? What is
Literally ride the wave.
It's an academic term.
Well, then what does it mean?
You write out what is happening.
You write out what happens. You just let it flow. You let the Arab Spring flow. You don't intervene. Because when we intervene empirically, we just try and recreate the Middle East in our own image to make a little United States. Because we are afraid of how different they are. That is our argument. That your insistence to give assistance is ultimately just an act to recreate little yous. And there's already enough of you. Now to the impact debate. The terminal impact is going to be extinction. 9/11 created a fear of vulnerability that manifests itself as the superpower syndrome, the desire to control, the apocalyptic confrontation, the demand of maximum use of force. They won't win defense because the syndrome is based out of revenge and it's not rational. This is where the argument ultimately gets interesting because it's not a rational, realist response. It is ultimately a response to what happened to those policymakers that existed during the time of 9/11. They got us from the backside, ultimately jumbling the way in which we made decisions towards the Middle East because we did not know who the enemy was. We did not know who to look towards or how to make decisions. Ultimately, when we failed to make the correct ones, it ultimately made it worse because we felt more and more vulnerable, meaning that we ultimately repressed the fear we had and created more violence in the Middle East. This is empirically the argument. This is just empirically the war. The war on the Middle East represents the humiliation of the 9/11 and its vulnerability. Patriarchy, ultimately, this echoes in the way in patriarchy because our vulnerability is ultimately a fear of the feminine body. This is root cause to all impacts because the fear of vulnerability is pushed by the need to dominate. Their need to dominate and insistence to give assistance to ultimately Pakistan is just the need to recreate and dominate the Middle East. And ultimately this form of domination recreates forms of impacts in the future. It's root cause to war and it's root cause to oppression. Not patriarchy, but their specific form of Islamophobia.
How does it recreate war? Like, how does it lead to make war? What's the argument?
Patriarchy, when your government seeks to relate its policy-making decisions under the logic of patriarchy, it ultimately seeks to dominate in every decision-making process it engages in, right? Because it needs to dominate. It can't be vulnerable. It can't be open to the world. The United States literally cannot envision itself in a vulnerable state. And if it now it's going to be the root cause to oppression. There are a couple of reasons. One, ultimately all people in the Middle East become tools. They are no longer human beings, but these objects that could be threats to the United States. So of course we need to intervene. These individuals ultimately lose their agency and value life because it's not that they lose their inherent own the way they see each other, but it's how the United States chooses to view them. They no longer have value to life. They become expendable. I think that empiricism is just true on our side here because 200,000 civilians became expendable over a threat that ultimately did not exist, over our fear of being vulnerable to the Middle East. So of course we need to sustain a large troop presence there because we can't be vulnerable to that of the unknown. Our seek to be specifically afraid of the Middle East is ultimately what will lead towards my self-fulfilling prophecy of ultimate destruction of the Middle East. I'm glad I finally spoke loud enough to turn the lights on. Now, we're good.
That's just that.
I'm taking your
So, the topicality for us first. Then it's going to be the framework. Then it's going to be the alternative. Then I prefer that you put a new sheet of paper for the permutations. Then it's going to be links. Impacts of the criticism. Case black.
Okay, I just pulled that all on one piece.
You did the case all in one
Smart
sheet?
guy. Yeah, just tell me when you're at the perms if you really want to run another piece of paper.
What Potter said.
I separated the criticism, so it's gonna be
Your
separated.
job is to keep me.
Just, flag me and
Just say where you are.
or just enter the MT in order.
Right.
No.
Damn it.
Do I need the top of the case or just going to the edge?
Do I need the topic case? It's, I mean,
Just
no,
case.
it's just case. Like, so we should all know what's gonna happen there.
Should we?
I really don't.
On topic of the first response, we need to consider competency argument says normal means would be the defense comptroller requires receipts. So now there's a requirement on or a condition of our aid. They have to require receipts. The next argument is counter-interpretation of firms. It has to give money to the SBC. They support that this is a law for the most limiting interpretation. Additionally, the SBC supports most political context. This is where the majority of the risk of security is going to happen in status quo. Additionally, as part of the Pakistani plan. The next argument is you say it's capable of showing your grant space are all non-unique. Additionally, the next argument is you run into a problem with criticism because you're not making because solvency with criticism probably means that we have to link your interp says we have to link your topic counter means solvency with free criticism probably. The topic counters are additionally are affirmative reasonability. You have a convoluted interpretation and you run criticism with shift the framework in a unique form. MGBs probably means fairness is not an issue. Additionally, the permutation will probably be the reason why you resolve it on the first argument's turn. The first argument's policymaking is good. The reason because it's all policy balance is the ace points that is key in order to normalize our interaction with the state because the public determines policy within the realm of a democracy. Additionally, second argument is that we can all become legislative actors in the future, which warrants what probably means we have solvency in the long run. These supports the government action is key to overcome collective action problems. Specifically, government's action only thing it can overcome when there's no incentive for an individual to act, which means probably prior question to your criticism. Next argument states when corporations have no profit-driven incentive to decrease externalities, specifically in the context of global warming and environmental externalities. These points that this leads to proliferation of global warming. The first argument is that we're on the brink right now. NASA scientists came out and said that we have to act now in order to be able to stop. The second argument is that this will lead to an outdated effect, which proliferates the issue and makes it even worse if we don't act within 10 years. And this will lead to rice paddies melting ice caps within the Chinese region, leading to a decrease in rice paddies. It's a unique form of environmental refugees, which is a terminal impact against your case. And additionally, it's the only way to solve that for biodiversity. Next argument is turn. You centralize the language or arguments. The discourse ethics justifies clarification of preconceived language, especially in the context of the fact that your links are making assumptions to the link of omission. The first argument is that we use always preconditions to our language. VC has to allow for clarification as part of the language process. The VC point is that otherwise break down the language and centralize it, so it can be used for manipulation. This is probably the root cause of the action you talk about because we're able to just pretend things are not a problem by centralizing. Additionally, it means that you can't stop the criticism because language is a prerequisite to criticism. It's the only thing that allows you to talk about the implications that are too devastating disadvantages to your framework. Additionally, it's probably justification for the permutation on the alternative. The first argument is this is not competitive. You're going to lose on the permutation. You can say reject something that's not inherent to the advocacy. Additionally, we'll just on the links next argument is you're not making solve arguments. Should have preempted the permutation better. The first argument is you cannot solve for debaters. There's a number of debaters that can happen before and after. There's the instance of the sort of normalization of the speech you're talking about. Additionally, you can't change the government's policies without normalizing yourself within the context of the framework of fiat. Next argument is that you can't solve security threats, which means people are always going to freak out as soon as it involves them, which means your sovereignty is only short term, and your devastating argument does not matter because none of these mean that a permutation can solve on the permutation sheet.
When you say abstract solves, say abstract actually makes it less.
Abstract makes less solvency because you don't understand it in the realm of realism. First permutation is do the plan and think about agreement with the alternative. Again, do the plan and then think about agreement with the alternative. The first argument is this is not the same as the eighth one because they exist in different realms. Your alternative exists in the realm of the advocacy, the plan is in the realm of fiat. The next argument is normal means allows for thoughts. And in other words, your argument is intrinsic. Thoughts are inevitable. We can think about the alternative. There's no way to solve back to that. You're probably not going to win intrinsic debate initially. The net benefit of the solvency probably means that we can weigh the criticism, impacts against it. Your arguments about fairness and they don't exist in the realm where you shift to the affirmative. And the next argument is to we include the affirmative key in the eighth one that this decreased amount of distance that will occur as a result of the implications or implying that we've done something wrong, which probably proliferates the same impacts you're trying to talk about in the realm of our language being the true culprit. The beast one is that this key to long-term solvency, the likelihood model says you have to increase people's level of involvement in order to increase central processing, which means that when something exists on the fringe of our stream of consciousness, the only way to lead to long-term solvency is to put it into the periphery. That means the permutation is the only way to resolve this by actually having us think about the alternative. These third arguments that this relies on that benefit of multi-realizability. The eighth one is only by doing the affirmative thinking about the alternative can we acknowledge that thought is not a binary. Our stream of consciousness allows for multiple aspects of thought at the same time. You can think about thinking, you can realize an argument is dumb in the middle of it. I'm thinking about my speech right now. The next argument says severing thoughts and thought accountability is the key because the only way to resolve the implications, otherwise we're never able to solve our thought all the way through. We'll just lead to genocide. As soon as we make an action that's headed in the wrong direction, can never sever our thought process up. Second, the next argument is that this is the beast one is that this is interlinked intelligibility where the government gets to define the way that certain individuals be non-intelligent enough to create a binary about the way that we think about thought. It's probably linked to your affirmative is what allows us to say that Middle Eastern people are crazy in the first place. I'm not saying that's justified or good rhetoric, but it's probably the interlink the government can create this sort of thought and proliferate probably means it turns case additionally. The fourth argument is the net benefit of mentalistic language to eighth opponents only by thinking or adding we think can we establish ourselves as active agents, which means we can think about our propensity to solve an increased amount of determinism because otherwise it's just an action. It's the only way to solve for the act of thought in regards to biological process of each one is that the key to solving for determinism, moral instigation. Otherwise, the passive agent implied in the alternative will make it so that we never have true accountability for our own thoughts. It's probably linked to because your argument is all about moral accountability or immoral actions as a result of the language. Additionally, determinism makes your impact systemic, and the fourth argument is policy methodologies. The fourth and benefit is policy methodology. The firm is a model for government action that can actually solve. Acknowledging that the firm action is the way the government would act. It's the only way to have multiple exist in the same realm on the links. First argument is turn. We clarify that eyesight is the true culprit of proliferation of the status quo. The eighth one is that rhetoric actually solves better by not saying it's Pakistani or the Al-Qaeda regimes, but it's eyesight. That has been labeled as a terrorist organization. But that's because it's actively proliferating. It's not part of the same or nuance of the story that you're talking about when you talk about the terrorists or Al-Qaeda or Taliban. The next argument is that this increases the propensity of government action to actually proliferate against the wrong people. Additionally, your links are remission. They're not actually doing it, and you do nothing to stop corruption. The next argument is impacts. The first argument is that they're already pissed off. It's the warrants why you probably can't resolve any of the conflict. Additionally, the plan is increase diplomacy by re-engaging constructive engagement, increase credibility, the government increase propensity to solve, and the plan is a new form of credibility to give them the money, not fear and corruption as a result of new. So we're not linking. We never talk about corruption in our advantage. Additionally, next argument is that we can increase. Never mind. Okay, forget that.
And that's how we never come back. Our arguments extinction is never, or if it's inevitable, we have to try it out because there's no way to do it. You can rehumanize yourself, and violence is probably inevitable. Some conflicts only, excluding that's probably the best impact. Next argument is turn. Realism eighth one is sending uniqueness to one. You see problem means there's an impending conflict in status quo. The beast point is that only you cannot shop the shop card in the middle of a conflict. That is first of all going to be seen as disingenuous offer and decrease the public accountability and foreign policy of the government policy by making it seem as if we resolve the implications of the government action on our own when we haven't done it. Initially, hard power is key to stop violence. The first argument is terrorist attacks. Encompass every single impact, which means that we have encompassed all the forms of violence you talk about initially. War uniquely hurt support when the rich way war die. Argument says that war would outweigh in terms of genocide and if we don't do anything, we'll be the true culprits of allowing way more action to exist in the status quo. And the next term is terrorism. The EAs wants that terrorist recruiting policies in the status quo. Or wars for the tri-state border in Brazil. And the Pakistani wars for the one you see. Additionally, these ones that you can't stop Bolvik, they're already pissed off. And there's no way to WikiLeaks is probably warned as to why there's no perception for why they would suddenly trust us. And their form of ideals and probably unique form where they believe it's justified because part of the infidel, which means you can't solve terrorism outweighs that. Next time is turn. If ones you can't solve for every enemy, it's probably the ones you don't break down the link with every individual in America. It will probably re-entrench the conflict, which means we'll be left defenseless because we think we resolve the risk of conflict in the status quo. Send the majority of the one to see the problem is a strategy for the affirmative. Like, they can make arguments the one to see isn't real, but it is. They have not won that battle, which means that 100% affluence by a big argument why extinction outweighs, and we have extinction conceded on the end.
Let's do
Like I said, Ryan, just tell me where you're at.
Yeah, yeah. Can you say it one more time?
Framework. All links. Index.
Perm after the all, before the all?
Before that.
Okay.
Sound good?
Gut check on the framework. Our interpretations that you get the affirmative as long as we get the alternative, which means all this solves literally all your policy making good arguments. Addition, you don't have an interpretation that's able to solve for this anyway, which means even if it became a voter, still a reason, not a reason to vote for you. Even more so, policy making might be good, but only in the instance in which we have the effective methods for that policy making. We're criticizing the method in which you implement the act, which means you do it through a form of revenge, which you have conceded that 100%, which means that before you can make an effective policy, you have to separate yourself from that revenge mentality, and separate yourself from that vulnerability that 9/11 created. Only by doing that is the only way you can do that is by voting or the alternative, which means we're a prerequisite to your argument. You also say the way that we normalize things with the state. I don't know what this argument means. We don't criticize the state existing, but even more so, I think the argument above probably answers this back. And we allow for that. We allow for normalization with the state to happen. And they also say that people want to become legislators. I don't want to become a legislator. I know Evan probably doesn't want to either. It's pretty. Don't know what the point of this argument is. There's no such thing as real world education. The institute debate. Your plan text is literally 20 seconds long, which obviously is not the same as a piece of legislation. Also, things like politics is are obviously not real world, which means there's no real world education. However, you have to look at the ethics behind the policy before you look at anything else. They also talk about collective action. I don't know how voting negative is a collective action. 3 judges saying that we should separate ourselves from the revenge mentality and vote negative by doing that. Then they could argue about corporations and global warming. I don't necessarily know what this argument means, but it's probably not a huge link to it. She should also know they don't make many wars on why any of this actually happened. They say they solve biodiversity. I don't know what that means, how you solve biodiversity, or why global warming and melting the ice cap. I'm also not sure that there is a very big link here, so I don't think that there is a way that they're able to solve this even more. So I think policy making only happens in the instance of the alternative, which I already answered that above. They say we essentialize language. It's not our link. Our language is not one based off of language, which means I don't understand how we essentialize that language. But in addition, they say we're link implementation. Not sure you conceded a slew of link arguments, which are all terms of the affirmative. They're not link implementation, but links based off the method of the 1AC and the action that was taken, and then the action that was taken within the 1AC. Now let's go to the permutations of first. And the first is a counter permutation to the alt thing. About the plan, this literally solves all the residual net benefits of the permutation because it allows for us to think and take the same type of actions as the permutation. Also, this is severance because it doesn't actually end up in you voting negative to do the alternative. Also, it's intrinsic because it has the word think in the permutation, which is not in the plain text words, and the alternative, which is also brought up for fairness because it means that they're able to add things that shit out of all of our office. They say no. They say no.
What's the condition of your permutation? What are you? Is that your real advocacy? Are you adding to your advocacy?
I mean, if your permutation's in advocacy, then we can do that too.
Next argument here's that they're able to.
No, dude, stop. I'm not answering your argument or your question.
The next argument is that they include all the team. I don't know what this argument means, or how this able to solve this. We're wanting links that are all disaster to your permutation. The way that you operate in this debate, the way that the 1AC's function is one that's crazy, that it's one that only tries to make the Middle East another little United States based off of the revenge mindset that happened and the vulnerability that happened as a result of September 11th. You can see that argument. Additionally, you also can see the patriarchy link. This is your conceptions of war and peace are flawed. The idea of being without war does not describe a woman's existence when she is being beaten and raped on a daily basis. This is not a peaceful existence for them. You've also conceded that, which is disatt to your permutation. They said the key to long-term solvency. That's not the alternative. The alternative is based on long-term solvency rejection of your affirmative in this instance. They say multi-reliability, or something or another about policy making this. Till the affirmative still exists, which means that there's not a diss out of this. They say genocide happens with your affirmative is what causes things like genocide to happen because of the things like the revenge mindset. This is literally the impact argument that we're making, that when the revenge mindset happens, we continue to intervene in this places. Things like militarily intervene. Things like a great example of this is Iraq, where we militarily intervene because they did not fit the mold of us. We genocided 200,000 innocent people
people had nothing to do with the war, which means the only U.S. genocide happening. They say intelligibility, that your affirmative does this, your affirmative allow for the state to define who is worthy and who is not worthy, which is exactly our link argument, since you are also conceding. Additionally, they're making a determinism argument. Once again, this determinism argument doesn't make any sense. I don't know how. It doesn't allow for the same, that allows for the alternative. Once again, they make a policy making argument. I've already answered this above. Alternative. The alternative is acceptance. We should reject the asked relation of 9/11 vintage toward the Middle East. And by the way, this means that we should allow for the people within the Middle East to have their own progress, not rely on the United States federal government to do it. There is no solvency evidence to the alternative, which means that there's only a risk that divorcing yourself from that revenge mindset is able to do this. No, it doesn't do the plan. However, it's a prerequisite to the plan, because without allowing for them to do it themselves, it means that they're constantly reliant on the federal government to allow for the same type of intervention to have, which means the alternative is the only way to solve for the app. Without the alternative, literally, it turns the affirmative. They say it's not competitive. I answered that on the permutation. They say that we don't solve for debaters. This is not our argument. We don't make a spillover argument. No, do we accept that anything happens outside of this round? More so, we just criticize the method in which your app functions. They also make a government argument. Once again, we already answered this together. This allows for better policy making to happen, but even more so, once again, it's not a movement that seeks to achieve change in the debate space, achieve change outside of this debate space, or even the government, which means there's no link to argument. They say there's no solvency of threats. Once again, it's not a threat call argument, more so a way in which we relate to these people, relate to the people in the Middle East. They make an abstract argument which literally has no warrant. Just said that people get confused. I don't know what's confusing about how we have a problem with vulnerability, and how that also causes us to do what so-called benevolent actions against the Middle East in order to take a revengeful action. You can also concede the role about it, which is to endorse the most productive method for engaging the Middle East. The app is not offense in our interpretation. If we went an end-tier method, you still have conceded a bunch of links which are all end-tier method. Let's go to the links now. The first argument they're making is an argument about proliferation. One, this is probably linked to an Orientalism argument, sensibly double bind either. Where the United States is able to keep these weapons with the Orientalists, other isn't able to keep that weapon, which ultimately allows for us to continue to exterminate these people. You conceded that. Additionally, you conceded you saw this link of omission. Once again, not link of omission is based off of the actual concrete what happens with the concrete action, what happens within the affirmative. You've also conceded the patriarchy argument, the conceptions of war and peace, destroy the feminine body, and allow for the acts of violence to continue to replicate. You conceded that, which is also answered about go.
No.
Go to the impact. The first argument they're making on the impact debate is they increase credibility. I think this is probably the issue, and another link to the criticism. Increasing credibility and seeming benevolent to do that. Increasing credibility is a reason why we try to create the revenge mindset that allows for these types of things to continue to exist. They say that way because things should become inevitable. Things only becomes inevitable, and the world, the affirmative eternal impacts of things should because 9/11 created a fear of vulnerability that manifests itself in a superpower syndrome, the desire to control and destroy itself, to create cycles of popular confrontation that demand maximum use of force. Also guarantees continued violent reaction. They also say realism. We are not a criticism of realism, but a criticism of how we interrogate and create a relationship with the Middle East. All their hard power and hedge killings, first of all, don't apply to the app because they don't increase hard power. They just shift some sort of money, but also it's not a link to the alternative either, because we don't say that imperialism as a whole is just how we relate to the Middle East is inherently not a way we should go about it. There's no link to it all. Additionally, even if there was a link to it all, their arguments that they're making about terrorism, they only boost the link of the criticism.
Fucking lost my notes, so.
Be serious?
Yeah, I ripped my notes out.
That sucks.
How much time do I get for this speech?
4 minutes. I'm working on it. I know it's called the LOR now.
It's also no prep.
What's the order?
Separate page. Right on the back.
No, you're good. I don't need it. Already said everything.
All right, cool.
Is that good?
The community college is going to win this debate for 3 reasons. One, it's going to be conceding patriarchy is the root cause of war, and conflict ultimately means you will never be able to solve your act, especially when you're conceding the link to patriarchy and the overarching criticism, which means that there is an itty-bitty criticism that you have ultimately conceded that means you do not solve your act, if not make it worse in the future. My number 1 here is impact. This makes your impacts inevitable in the long term, even if you have some sort of short-term solvency to conflict. You ultimately mean that you justify worse forms of domination and intervention in the future. You do not have a response to this argument. Double check your flows. Nope, not there. Patriarchy does not come out of his mouth, which means ultimately that he links to the root cause arguments, which means he only makes these impacts worse in the future. And number 2 is ultimately makes the most dominating forms of it indicts their logic, because it means their logic is ultimately motivated by a form of domination and fear of vulnerability, which means that our response will be dominating and fearful of vulnerability and over-masculine. That is the root cause of war. They have conceded every warrant to why patriarchy be the root cause of war, which means that they will not be able to solve their act, and proves that the epistemology they have approached the topic with ultimately is one out of fear of vulnerability. Number 2 is there's too many disadvantages to the permutation. There's a reason they put it on a separate sheet. Is one, it's not well warranted out anyways, but they're going to try and go for it. There's going to be a bunch of disads. I'm going to make these clear. One is going to be the revenge disad. I think that we're articulated in Bin Laden not only accelerates this, makes it worse because we do not know which side Pakistan is on. So of course we want to justify some sort of little intervention so we can feel a little less vulnerable inside. Ultimately, this is bad because it's a form of domination that informed the Middle East to create a bunch of little thems. They've conceded we don't want more of them, but also they thinking about doing the alternative does nothing because the alternative is linked to an action. It is not thinking about things. The alternative is when you intervene empirically trying to give assistance to the Middle East, you are just trying to homogenize the entire Middle East and make a bunch of the United States. There's not even a response to that argument. I'm pretty sure I made it 4 times in my 1 in C. Next argument. Number 2 is Orientalism. Orientalism doesn't come out of his mouth. Plan gives a plain glass window. I think I did a good job of explaining this, how they recreate a separate other on the other side, and only this has an independent impact. They're not responding to. It's self-fulfilling prophecy, which ultimately means that all these impacts become inevitable. The specific ones they isolate also is the double-bind argument. I think that Ryan's making makes a lot of sense here. Ultimately, as double standard proves that we need to, ultimately, we were trying to find insistence on assistance is just to make us feel less vulnerable. There's also a corruption link they're not responding to. You know how I know they didn't respond to it? Because they didn't know. They said corruption in the 1AC. Also, there is a sequencing disad here as well. They're just trying to justify some sort of intervention, so the permutation still leads to some kind of intervention. It's just because you're an irrational being that has some sort of vulnerability created by the 9/11 attack. There's not a response to this epistemology, and when they see that their epistemology is flawed, that they cannot function within a realist framework because they are irrational. You cannot affirm them because ultimately their epistemology is suspect, which means all their truth claims are suspect as well. This means they will not be able to solve. Also, number 3, they're conceding our relation argument that it's not about destroying the state or the state is bad. We only make the state better, actually, because it's how we relate and ultimately create policy actions. We don't stop realism, nor do we stop the state. We lead to a better state because we stop the state from intervening in instances where it doesn't need to. Just because it feels vulnerable does not mean it needs to waste resources to do so. I think that we ultimately saw back for a lot of their arguments. The alternative is ultimately is acceptance. We need to accept them and feel vulnerable. It's okay to do that. It's okay to embrace the feminine. That is ultimately what solves the root cause impacts we're extending at the bottom of the debate, which they are not responding to. They're going to go for some semblance of some offense that we do not link to. It is just them linking to. It is just them attached to the last grasp of vulnerability created by 9/11. I don't even think 9/11 comes out of his mouth in his speech, nor the discussion of vulnerability and how that created vulnerability and how we've reacted to that since.
The links turn the app.
The links turn the entirety of the app, even if you don't like the alt.
Okay, the order is going to be the permutation page. Make sure you have the term to the first box. After the permutation page, the framework, and then the link ones. Okay. The easy way out for the affirmative is obviously going to be the permutation. Their answer is completely non-responsive. First of all, they're going for severance, intrinsic answers that don't answer the fact that we aren't cramped for this about thought, and probably means the net benefits of permutation outweigh the entire year of criticism in a world in which it's literally linked to your criticism means that we can solve better. On, first of all, the permutation, the alternative, do the alternative and then think about the plan. First of all, you don't think about the alternative, which means you don't access our net benefit. Additionally, there is no net benefit to this. You don't rate a single net benefit. Probably means you're going to vote on risk of the net benefit of the permutation alone. Additionally, when the arguments is why you must think first, which means that in a world in which you do not think before the alternative means you link to the entirety of our net benefits. Additionally, this proves the firm was competitive in the first place within a world in which this could exist. Probably means permutation number one that we read could exist. Probably means that you're going to vote on that permutation because the permutation doesn't mean the first permutation wasn't competitive. First of all, on our permutation is do the plan, then think about it. First of all, they make arguments as to why this is severance. First of all, the alternative is not an inherent action. Arguments that you don't have to take action in order to solve the alternative because we can think about it probably solves it. Not a single argument is why thinking doesn't solve the entirety of the alternative because in this world they would literally have to prove as to why there's a difference between thinking an alternative and suddenly voting for it via the ballot is not just another mechanism of thinking about it probably also means that there's absolutely no difference. Additionally, they make the seventh argument. First of all, argues that there's no solvency deficit to thinking and means that we get 100% risk of the net benefit. Additionally, you concede arguments as to why thoughts and normal means we're always thinking about even thoughts that we're having during the debate around probably means that you can't run intrinsic severance permutation on our thoughts. Additionally, when the arguments is why the thoughts are not severance at all probably means you're going to err on the side as long as we win a risk of the net benefit because they don't bring a single impact severance or intrinsic probably means that we are going to win on the net benefit of adding the word we think has a net benefit versus they're saying it's intrinsic. The net benefit is literally moral disengagement solves back genocide probably means that we're way ahead on the impact calculus on this debate. Additionally, you go for arguments as why we okay, that's it. So extend across the top half of the permutation. The number two arguments including the opposite key. They say that we have residual links to criticism. They go for arguments as why the Middle East. We're painting a picture of the Middle East. It's just another Middle East. But first of all, they make arguments as why they're a methodology case. Problem is, they do not get a single link to our rhetoric. They do not make a single argument as why it's intrinsic to our plan text. Problem is, including the plan text and the permutation that overcomes the residual link in or in which they concede of discourse arguments on the framework lets us completely sever our rhetoric because they make the argument that they're not linking to our rhetoric. Probably give full access to permutation. Additionally, they make an argument that we can't overcome the residual link to patriarchy. But first of all, we link to the trend this because in a world in which you do not allow multi-realizability and you do not understand the stream of consciousness means that you are the root cause of patriarchy. Additionally, you also are the root cause of moral disengagement means that we're linked to Turkey patriarchy as well. And that's also linked to our criticism because I don't think the word patriarchy or a fundamental assumption about what the plan text is links to the plan text itself because our plan text does not make any assumptions about the preconditions or rhetoric that exists in the PMC means that you conclude the plan and then think about the alternative solves the entirety of the criticism and access and that benefit. Additionally, they go for the arguments why rejection key, not a single word or arguments why rejection is key other than our argument that says including the app, which by definition does not include the rejection element, means we get better access to long-term solvency. And additionally, they concede the argument that this is central root processing, which has better solvency mechanism because we are the ones actually thinking about it in our central root instead of periphery root solves better. Additionally, they say it's intrinsic because it does not include, now I know I'm going back a little bit, but they say it's severance because we don't include the voting neg portion of the alternative. Voting neg is absolutely artificial competition. You're not going to vote us. Additionally, there is no impact. That's why excluding voting neg does not also test the competition between. Okay. Additionally, they say the affirmative still exists as an answer to multi-realizability. Problem in a world in which they don't understand multi-realizability. I think you're going to vote on this argument. We're winning arguments. That's why multi-realizability says that mental states are what exists, and the properties that inform our mental states when we read the plan text are not the same as the properties that inform our mental states when we're going for the PMR. That's key to understand the stream of consciousness, and severing thought is key to be able to prevent genocide because in a world in which we can't sever our thought, can't prevent action that comes as a result of thought, means we always have to implement what we think about. That, I think everyone would agree, is a terrible idea. So that probably answers back your ask still exists arguments. Additionally, you go for arguments that's why genocide would happen from the revenge mindset. Genocide only happens in a world of moral disengagement, which is our second net benefit, and genocide happens in one in which people do not inhibit their thoughts, which is the net benefit to voting for multi-realizability. Problem means we're ahead on that debate. Additionally, they go for arguments that's why so intelligibility says that's the way we construct people in the Middle East means that we are the internal link term. Your criticism means easy vote for the net benefit because the net benefit means if you don't vote for it, you're literally causing the impacts of criticism again. Additionally, they go for, on number 2, mentalistic language, they go for the app links because the app lets the government define. The app does not link because only in a world in which you make our understanding of the plain text static, that is what leads to determinism. Additionally, you do not include we think, which is agentless passive voice, means that we are allowed to construct things like the people are not acting the way they should. Additionally, all we need to do is run a risk of one net benefit for implementation and overcome criticism.
Good job, guys.